Well, this film sure felt like a fish out of water. I really wish that DC learned to embrace a tone that didn't take itself more seriously earlier. Zack Snyder. I have to admit, though, it was nice to see a halfway entertaining film come out of the DCEU, especially after all the cinematic failures that have come out. James Wan was a fabulous directing choice for this project, because his style epitomized what Aquaman needed to be. Visually stunning and coherently shot. It didn't need to be a masterpiece, just fun, cool, and entertaining. For a director that had mostly done horror movies in the past with a relatively dark aesthetic, it was a nice visual contrast from some of his work. At times, shots of Atlantis reminded me of Pandora from Avatar, with the luminescent plants and the colorful creatures. Also, that kaiju that Aquaman rode at the end of the movie, total Pacific Rim ripoff. I can't really argue with the visual style of this film. The underwater scenes were stunning and were color corrected to be extremely vibrant and just draw you into this world that you've never seen before. This is the kind of lighthearted film that Man of Steel could have been. Perhaps if Zack Snyder didn't just finish dismantling the idea of the superhero in his film Watchmen, he would have been more inclined to give us a Superman that was more true to his original character. You have to wonder if at any point Zack Snyder had a more hopeful perspective for superheroes. Or maybe he just thinks this is what Superman's supposed to be. It's just really sad that there have been 6 movies in the DC cinematic universe. This was the second film that felt like it wasn't completely destroyed by script changes and reshoots. As for the writing in this movie, it's incredibly cliche. The plot is pushed forward by one MacGuffin after another. One villain is a revenge plot. The other villain just wants to take over the world. Relationships are boring. Every time people are done spouting exposition at each other or having any kind of dialogue exchange, something blows up and leads into a fight scene. And most of the fight scenes in this film just feel like they're giving the protagonist an opportunity to punch things. They don't flow very organically with the plot of the film at all, they just kind of happen. As a result of this, you can't really believe the chemistry between characters or that the characters are invested in the plot of the film at all. In fact, the actors don't look like they knew what was going on half the time. The actors look like they were having fun some of the time, but half of the time it just felt like they were doing things in front of a blue or green screen without much direction. Jason Momoa looks like an enjoyable person to work with, and has a good physical aesthetic for being a superhero in a movie. I've really grown to enjoy his acting in the Netflix show Frontier, so I might be a little biased in liking him in this film because I like his character as Declan Harp. However, I wouldn't say he was anything exceptional in this movie. Amber Heard had next to no chemistry with Jason Momoa.
I could have just peed on it.
Honestly, it felt like she was just there to look pretty. William Dafoe was engaging, as he normally is in most films, but extremely underutilized as a character. I would have liked to see more interactions with him and Aquaman, but the ones that we got were kind of there to drive the plot forward and nothing else. And Patrick Wilson was in another James Wan film. I have to admit, though, he turned in a pretty decent, over-the-top cartoon villain performance with a costume to match. And that's really all this film is. It's a cartoon. A $160 million Saturday morning cartoon. 2 macho super titans hitting each other in really cool environments. Tune in next week to see what happens. I have to say, though, the ridiculousness of this movie is what makes it watchable. There are fishmen riding sharks, an army of crab people, and of course, there's an octopus that plays the drums. James Wan was definitely going for the ridiculous on this one. This film just basically capitalizes on the visual spectacle and the world building alone, and honestly, that's probably the main reason why people enjoyed going to it. If you want good writing, go somewhere else. 5 out of 10 for Aquaman. I had some fun, but I wouldn't recommend you spend over 2 hours sitting in a theater unless you want to just turn your brain off for a little while.